morning. It's 11:45, and we want to make sure we get it all covered. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My part, most of you have seen me speak before. You've heard me speak. So what I'm going to tell you is pretty much kind of an overview of what we've said previously. Ms. Mack's part is going to dig a little bit deeper. So we were telling someone just a minute ago, doesn't matter how many times you see this, hear this, it still is confusing. And we say it all the time, and it's still confusing to us sometimes. We have to sit back and say, wait a minute, what was that again? So please don't think that you are by yourself. So today, what we're going to talk about is the understanding of school improvement designations, information on the exit criteria for designated schools, how the school report card indicators factor into school improvement, and some next steps. What do we do from here? Okay, so federal accountability, RSA plan, right? Some history. 2018, that's when we were told, 17, 18, we were told, oh, we have to identify schools that are falling behind, the 5%, the bottom 5%. So that was our very first cycle. That was the beginning. Then in 2021, we know that great pandemic happened. It caused us, when we were told, oh, you only do 3 years in a cycle, now we have this pandemic, we got to add another year to it because we were out of school for most of it. 2022 came along, and then we said, okay, first cycle is now over. These schools exit, now we have new identifications. Oh, but if you did exit, you're in a second cycle. So we created that set our new threshold. 2023 came along, and we said, oh, we need some amendments made because some of the things that we saw after that first cycle just wasn't working. We need to make some things. We need to make some changes. And so in 2024, we put those amendments in place. For example, the mid-cycle exit. But that only applies to those schools who were identified as second cycle, okay? If you were a second cycle school, now you could actually exit before the next identification started. And then, of course, where we are now, at the end of this year, the beginning of next school year, in October, November, December, this 3 months, we will be sending out new designations. So that's our timeline. That's how we have gotten to where we are right now. So what are those designations? CSI. There are 3 ways you can become CSI school. The first one is you're just in the bottom 5%, but you have to be a Title I school, okay? So I'm a Title I school. I'm in the bottom 5%. It is a 3-year designation. I know I just said, oh, wait a minute, we can exit mid-cycle. But remember, you got to be in your second cycle in order to exit, right? I must go through 3 years before I can get into that mid-cycle exit.
Or exit at the end of
the first. Right, or exit during that new identification. So our next identification is in the fall. And you're separated by elementary, middle, and high. And remember I said the threshold was set back in 21-22, using those 21-22 scores. So the second way that you can become a CSI school is if you're a high school and your grad rate is below 70%. So how do I exit? I make sure that my grad rate is above 70%, right? It's still a 3-year designation. And once again, we're identifying again in the fall. And the third one, this is new this year because now we have just completed 2 cycles, right? If you have been identified ATSI for 2 cycles and you do not exit using this year's scores, you do not exit, you're a Title I school, you are now becoming CSI. So let me say that again. I've been ATSI 2 cycles. That means 6 years. I am a Title I school. Then I'm going to now become CSI. So we know that there are about 50-something current, bottom 5% is about 50-something schools. Now we're going to add on all of the other schools who did not exit ATSI. Yes, ma'am.
Third cycle.
Yep, oh, it's not on this one, it's on the next. Yeah, that's coming up. That is coming up. So yes, you will continue to be at ATSI. You'll just be a third cycle. So the next designation is ATSI, Additional Targeted Support and Improvement. Remember, this is, I am looking at your subgroups. Disabled, poverty, and the different races. How do I exit it? Well, how do I get in? How do I get identified? It doesn't matter if I'm Title I. I could be non-Title I, but my subgroup falls in the bottom 5%. Okay? I take those scores. I'm making it its own report card. And that report card says I'm in the bottom 5%.
Can I add something to that, Mama? Because when we talk about that bottom 5%, we're looking at that subgroup performance and comparing it to the highest performing CSI school. So when we talk about those threshold scores, they're established using CSI, but they're used to determine a subgroup performance. So that's where that comparison is.
And the difference in elementary and high school, of course, elementary and middle, they use the SC Ready, whereas the high school is going to use your English 2 and your Algebra 1 ESC scores for those subgroups. It's a 3-year designation. We're using the thresholds that were set in 21-22. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here. And then that goes back to the question that you just asked. If I am a non-Title I school and I'm not exiting for the second time, then I'm just continuing to be an ATSI school. And then we have TSI, CUS, the consistently underperforming subgroup. Those are identified annually. That means I've had 3 years of being TSI in the bottom 10%. So ATSI is bottom 5, TSI is bottom 10. ATSI is 3-year designation. TSI is annually. This comes every single year. Some of you have received the data in ADT. It's been a little confusing. You get that information because we are telling you that this one is 3 years consistent. This one is, hey, this is a red flag. This is 1 year. If you do it again, you're going to be named TSI again. But if you do it the 3rd year, then you're named at TSI CUS. Now, if you notice, it says exit criteria. It says districts determined. If you heard Tiffany just a few minutes ago, there's really not an exit criteria for TSI. You just aren't identified the next year, right? The reason it says district determined is because if your district chooses, you hear that now, if they choose to say, I see that you've grown, I don't think that you've grown quite enough, then they can just keep you on TSI again. The state's not necessarily telling you, your district is telling you that, but that's if your district chooses.
My hunch is most districts won't choose. I don't know, because we run this data every year. Typically, what the districts are doing is saying, oh, okay, well, they're not on the list anymore, and we are looking for anything to celebrate at this point, right? So, again, it is district choice. My hunch is most districts will not choose to keep a school in the TSI. I don't know if you guys tell me if I'm wrong.
And one question I get asked all the time. So if I am TSI for 3 consecutive years, can I not become a TSI? The way you're going to become a TSI is, number one, it's during that identification year. Number two, remember TSI's bottom 10%, that means you have dropped to below the bottom 5%. So could you become a TSI? Yes, you can. But it's not, oh, I've been TSI, so now I'm going to become a TSI. That's not going to always happen.
And I think what's really important is when the Office of Research and Data Analysis drops data in ADT for districts to look at, that is, they'll have information in there, like last year's data indicated ATSI schools that aren't actually ATSI, but what it's saying is, hey, if we ran the identification this year, this school subgroup would qualify for ATSI. And that's part of the reason why we try to send out, companion, hey, these are the official designations. And y'all, it's a lot of data. So just understand, we're going through it. We're actually working with Order right now so that we can streamline our process and provide more accurate and hopefully, one time, here's your information, and it is what it is, and we're here to help. So,
but that information that you're getting in ADT, it's hopefully telling you, I need to get with that school and make sure that they're pulling the scores up, especially this year, because identification's coming, and there's a good chance they're going to be identified again. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, you went over this on the last slide, but I'm trying to process a few slides back. The threshold, like 30.79, at this year being the designation year, we're still using, so when the reports come out, if you're over 30.79 for that grade level group, then, or does it change?
it will change. Absolutely will change. And I think Vaughn has a slide that speaks to that coming up.
Yeah. Okay. So this just pretty much tells you what I just told you. It's just in chart form, just to kind of put it all together. You notice that it says priority is here. It says not written into it because if you are currently priority, if you have priority schools, you will no longer be identified as priority. When we send out identification designations this coming year, there will be no school listed as a priority. Now, I'm telling you that, but please know, the majority of them, no, all of them, not the majority, all schools that were identified as priority were actually ATSI also.
And a lot of them were second cycle.
Yes, we kind of, and I'm just being honest, we got our hands slapped. We were trying to help districts. We thought we could do it, and then we were told, no, you can't do this. We were trying to help save some of those that instead of making them ATSI again, and then having to worry about them turning into CSI, we thought that we could make them priority. So, if they continue to be ATSI,
Here's a question back here. I can see it on her face.
yeah.
If they've been CSI, have you been counting them as an ATSI?
No. So what we do is the most no ma'am. What we do is the most intensive category.
So if they're designated as ATSI, which they likely would be the following year, the following cycle, they're good. That's not a repeat cycle. That's just their first cycle.
There was a break. It wasn't consecutive, and that's the operative word, consecutive. Which is why we made a choice.
That's why we, instead of making them ATSI, we made them priority this year.
TSI cuts. Same thing. They would just be based on that cut score.
And there's no escalation for TSI schools.
I figured that, but I'm going to ask it out loud.
No, I'm glad you did. Yes.
Yes. That's it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they don't improve, you're going to be one of these.
Right, and I think what's important, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
but TSI is the bottom 10%, which includes the bottom 5%, right? So just keep that in mind.
Now, that's the same thing as priority, too, right? Like, if I have two priority schools, priority is that first case,
Right.
So how do I know? How will I know if let's just say I have one priority school. If they were a federally designated ATS, would have been, it wouldn't have mattered. You're telling me that
Start all over.
start all over.
First
You just said they
And
were, I just want to make sure.
So this is what it is. It doesn't, we wrote priority out of the ESSA plan. The reason why we were identifying priority is because it was in the ESSA plan. So now, having said that, let me give you this one caveat. This is, it's not anything that's going to be bad, but we still have to run the bottom 10% every year because that's the only way that we will identify.
But when they come to priority into ATSI, they are ATSI first cycle.
Yes.
Just a clarifying question, you have this slide up for CSIs and the thresholds originally set in 21-22. Could you just clarify that for me? I'm new to the state.
Yes.
Like, I'm looking at here.
So the threshold is set by the CSI school. So, right. So the last identification cycle we had for CSI and ATSI was 21-22. So the 3 threshold scores for elementary, middle, and high were established by the highest performing CSI school at the time.
The new year, though, just because this is a designation year,
Yes.
the 21-22,
It'll be new cuts.
Absolutely.
so not like ATSI where they're trying to beat the threshold, like how you can go second cycle with no CSI second cycle.
Yeah, there is. So let me just say this. We have those threshold scores, and they really only matter on mid-cycle exits for second cycle or higher schools. So this fall, we will have new scores. And although you could possibly, conceivably exit from the 21-22 threshold, more than likely, unless you have a super high score, you could be re-identified with the 25 threshold scores. So, and I think Vaughn has a slide coming up. That,
You had a question?
another question?
With priority, they have their own pot of money. Now going to be ATSI, their money is with the district's money, and they no longer have their own pot of money.
So what will end up happening, or we're hoping will end up happening, I can't say for sure right this second, but what we're trying to do, the funding that is tied to the priority schools, that's the state funding. We're hoping that we can put that towards the next group that I'm getting ready to discuss, which is that underperforming unsatisfactory. Problem right this moment is the amount of schools.
Thank you.
As always. Yeah.
She pretty much asked the question of what my grade is. Thank you. My question was currently priority schools are receiving an allocation.
If those schools fall into now the ATSI category, it's actually coming in the last few years under the district for us.
It'll be different.
It will be different, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Threshold scores. Just look at those real quick. What pops in your head when you see this? So the threshold scores keep increasing, except high school, exactly. So when we tell you that your schools have to meet the threshold, they don't really need to meet the threshold. They need to be exceeding that threshold, right?
And that's why we put that bottom 10% number in there as well, because safety is over that number.
Well, and also remembering that your accountability metrics have changed multiple times. They're changing again. Your, like in high school, it was English 1. Almost that just since 2018.
Absolutely. But I think,
Still,
to that point,
but knowing how to calculate it is the important part.
right, and to that point, the system is looking at a weighted point index. So that means there's multiple factors that are included in that score. So it's not like one day I take a test, that's it. There are several different things that are involved. Yes, ma'am.
So
Tell us about that weighted point index. What are those things that are included? Is it cost?
I'm going back to in about jumping on
Yeah. Let's go through this part and then we'll go back to part. All right, so this is going to be quick and easy because this is easier to understand and easier to explain. So underperforming schools, how do you become an underperforming school? You look at your report card, and if that school says unsatisfactory overall, you're an underperforming school. If you're below average, you're an underperforming school. Simple enough, right? How do you exit? Be identified as average or high, right? That is done every single year.
Here's the danger in all of this. I'm just going to say this. If you think about the cut scores that are established at each level for the report card rating, everybody knows how to get here. What number is one number for average, right? If you think about those threshold scores and how they're rising, right? Eventually, eventually those cut scores might change too, right? I just beg them not to change it this year.
The one thing I want to point out is if you're an underperforming school, remember this is Article 16, this is state identification, right? You can be CSI, ACSI, or a TSI school, okay? You can have those two designations. Chronically underperforming schools, if I am unsat for 3 consecutive years, then I am considered chronically underperforming school. Once again, this is an annual designation, and it can possibly trigger emergency management. Underperforming district. An underperforming district is just we look at all the schools that are in the district, take that number, what is 65% of schools in there? How many of them have unsat or below average? If it is 65% or more, then that is an underperforming district. Okay? That's done every year. And what we try to do is, that very first year you're listed as underperforming, we go ahead and let you know. We try to put things in place because we don't want you to be there 3 consecutive years. Because after 3 consecutive years, but after 3 consecutive years, the district could then become emergency managed. Yeah, it's at the bottom. So once again, this is the chart that just kind of tells you exactly what I just said. Okay, this is where you want.
So all of this matters because this is the weighted point index. These are the indicators that feed into the weighted point index, okay? And I'm going to kind of talk to you from the point of view of the subgroup experience because I think that the work that Joe's team has been doing is fantastic. I think the data that we're providing to you is fantastic. But if you don't know how all of that feeds into this, then it's going to be really, really difficult for you to move your subgroups out of ATSI. So, number one, please, if you don't, read the accountability manual. Number two, if your principals don't, tell them to read the accountability manual. Number three, any building level administrator needs to what? Read the accountability manual. It is that important. It really is. And read it multiple times. You know how they tell you to read scripture over and over again? Read it till it gets in your soul. This right here is it tells you everything you need to know. Read each indicator thoroughly. It should not just be the accountability people in your district that understand how these things come together. What students are included in the indicator? That's it right there. Where does the information come from? There are a billion different files all around the district, right? And they all feed into those indicators that I showed on the last slide. And any of the days that are mentioned in the manual are important days. Those are data extraction days. Now, the very last bullet is extremely important when we talk about subgroup data. Read the business rules. I'm going to give you some time to read some very important business rules. How many of you have seen the data that ORDA shared with districts? All right. If you have not seen that data and you're curious and want to geek out like how I do, you need to go back and find out who is your accountability coordinator in the district and say, hey, I need to see that data, right? Because the subgroup data is definitely affected by these business rules. So what does that mean? We have blank elementary school. And that overall school performance is that 53.02. And I think that's a good rating for elementary, maybe. I don't know. I'm not elementary geared, so bear with me if I'm wrong. Now, they do not have preparing for success because no one had that, right? And they did not have a multilingual learners progress or ML group. So those two areas, those two indicators were not rated, okay? But those points got to go somewhere because the math still has to math. It's still got to be out of 100. So where does it go? Those starred areas, academic achievement and student progress, right? Which means that 90% of this report card for this subgroup was based on ELA and math. Exactly. Breathe deep because I'm telling you. One thing that I want you to understand is that in the overall school performance column, those business rules have already been applied because if you add 13.96 and 22.17 and 6.58, you will not get 53.02. Not today. So the numbers in the parentheses show how those business rules are applied. And basically what you do is you take that 13.96, which is your academic achievement rating out of 35, you multiply it by 45 and you divide by 35, and that will give you that 17.948 and probably some other numbers that are beyond that. Now, I want you to notice our disabled subgroup performance. 23.71, which means that it is well below that 30.79. And it's also well below that 33.14, which is the new 5%. And probably, if this subgroup continues to perform this way, is going to be below the new threshold for elementary. And there's only ratings in two places, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to drill down a little bit deeper, everything was in academic achievement. This is probably 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I don't know for sure for this school, but they didn't have student progress because that's 4th and 5th grade. So they didn't have a large enough subgroup. So everything, nothing about progress was counted on this. Everything went to how did the children do on ELA and math? SC Ready. Now, seeing something like this would change how you would approach supporting this subgroup, right?
Can I just add a little tidbit too? And so
Absolutely.
emphasis on the school climate, because that's what we did. Like that's very important. I mean, it's very easy for that subgroup of disabled to not let certain kids take it, and then you mess around and don't get the points for that.
Yeah.
But a school like that, like what I told the schools were, I mean, the school climate, those are like points you should definitely get. But you know, you really need to make sure that they are not letting certain students take it just because. So if they're testing, if they're taking SC Ready or they're taking all testing, then whatever accommodations are being made need to be made for the school climate because those are points. And I know that the categories do matter as well. It's not just them taking it, just the participation piece of it.
Mhm.
Those are easy, those are just points you're throwing away.
Absolutely. I'm glad you made that point. I think what's also important to note is of those 32 students that are in this disabled subgroup population being tested on either SC All or SC Ready, right? How many of them are getting on grade level instruction? It is. All right. I know, right? Wait. Y'all were so happy earlier. Okay. Oh, you want? Oh, I misread the whole crowd. All right. Let's move on to middle school. Okay. So this middle school, 41.45. They're knocking it out the box. No preparing success, no ML group, right? So they had 3 indicators that were scored, but again, 90% of it is ELA and math. I guess what I'm trying to drive home is if we don't do tier 1 instruction well for our subgroups, this is what we're going to get. But this subgroup, I think, is over the threshold, right? 29.95? 28 point something, yeah. So this subgroup made it over the hurdle. So then we would look at their meets and exceeds for ELA or math and see if they've increased. But just for some context, again, this is how many students impacted the rating. Yes, sir.
So in calculating the student progress indicator, when Fordham releases the BAM file in the fall, we drill down and we can see our school's BAM for how they're calculated. So since ELA is all BAM this year, is the BAM different by subgroup where we would need to drill down to get each individual subgroup's BAM score to determine the student progress, or is it looking at BAM's real world scorecard?
Yeah, that's way above my pay grade. I understand what you're asking. Without having looked at that file, I can't answer.
You would have to drill down. That's a Dan question, but
Yeah,
drill
it is.
into the BAM of the subgroup because that's showing the progress.
Yeah, so it would be 17.5 points then of the report card and then a third of the other. So the subgroup comparison.
I think that whatever, since Dan is involved, I would think that whatever they send to us, hopefully we'll already have done that.
And if not,
You know what I'm saying? I think he's gonna already
We
make
do
it.
get it by subgroup. Like, we can drill it down. It's tedious to drill. So the question from the school then was, are they actually drilling it down? The BAM is different for every subgroup in the school.
so would you email me that, and that will go on our list with BAM, because we really are trying to address those different situations and try to make sure that
May at the SCASA roundtable, at y'all and Van, show us how that works with the accountability.
Okay.
It just would be good for us to understand the mechanics of the point.
Yes,
And we'll worry about the other stuff later.
exactly.
Basic question.
No, that's fine. I take them
As
all.
a director of federal programs, obviously I am not involved deeply in the data analysis of all of this. So what I want to know where else is this being presented to what other groups? Like who should be expected to know this in our district, that kind of stuff. Like I know it's been over and over,
So
but
targets this. I think Joe's going to be adding it to her ATSI presentation, so more principals will get this. And we can go anywhere and talk about this. I think
getting this.
This is fairly new. This information, the way where we're presenting it.
Getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
accountability folks, like doing those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's homework. Yeah.
So I should expect if someone says, I haven't heard of this.
Right now, we have not presented this to TAR yet. Did you present this? No, we haven't presented this to TAR like this. Testing and accountability.
Oh, thank you.
But I think from a federal program standpoint, if you're looking at this data and the school is saying, hey, we want to buy XYZ, you need to say, okay, yeah, so your subgroup is this, and you're not going to have enough for all these other indicators, so whatever you're doing needs to focus on academic achievement and student progress in ELA and math.
That's why you hear school improvement managers ask all the time, does it impact ELA and math? If it doesn't, then they are going to deny it.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're going to go to high school. I worked with a few high schools over the last couple of weeks where they called and the question was, hey, you know, we've got this excellent report card or we've got this good report card. How come our subgroup didn't exit? Right? Because you missed some kids, right? So this is a sample of a high school where the overall performance is 34.97. And as you can see, they've got every indicator, right? And that's, they need help too. But when you go to the disabled subgroup, they are at 11.18, which I think is higher than, no, it's a little bit lower, 7.19.
0.01 lower.
They would not make it. I know, right? But you're so close, right? But again, something I want to call your attention to is the grad rate, 0.59 out of 29, and high school student success indicator, 0. Now, as a former high school person, I'm going to tell you, that should not be 0. Because what you're doing for high school student success is making sure that they earn the 6 credits, right?
But your kids who are for that group who are getting a certificate and don't count for graduation are automatically going to count against you.
Are they? Not in that one.
For your graduation.
Right. I'm talking about that high school student success, the one that's 0. Again, if you have the credential program, right, they should still be tracking. Let me go to the next slide. So
Another thing that helps, I mean, that you look at is the year that they're classified, because with special ed kids, they can stay in, and their classification is not
true for
it's
you,
just
yeah.
4 to 5 years. I mean, they can stay.
All of those pieces have to be attended to, but you can't attend to them if you don't know that those pieces have to be attended to, right? Just so you can see the students that count in the indicator, notice grad rate and CCR, it's going to be the same students, right? So I know a lot of schools have turned to having like a graduation team and things of that sort. They should not only be tracking the grad rate and the high school student success, the CCR needs to be tracked. And again, CCR is another one of those areas for students with disabilities where you can really get points. So those are things that you have to be aware of. And I'm going to check our time, and I want to make sure we have. Oh, good God Almighty! All right. So here are some things, and these are not all the next steps, but things that I think you need to be aware of in working with schools. You know, get all of your data, right? Whole group, subgroup, get it all. But work with somebody that can make sure you understand this data. Identify the students. Who counts, right? So if you're going to pull that query from PowerSchool and that instructional setting is special ed, and I'm going to use a high school example because this is the best one for me to come off the cuff with. Who in your school at this time is taking the English 2 exam? Right? Who's taking the Algebra 1 exam? Who's taking biology? Who's taking U.S. history? Identify who those students are, right? Identify whose classes they're in, right? This is about really being aware of there's a child attached to this data, right? Where's your cohort performing? What instructional adjustments need to be made? What PD, coaching? Your special ed teachers can't keep on, and I know a lot of them are elementary background, they can't keep on in a high school or middle school saying, hey, well, this child's on the third grade level. You're supposed to be helping them on the level that they're on, the grade that they're on. So how can you do that? And I know there's going to be some exclusions and some exceptions to that, but the majority of our students are tracking towards a diploma, right? And they should be getting grade level instruction and support from their resource teacher. What barriers are in place? If you're a district person, what barriers are you imposing on the school that's going to keep them from supporting their subgroups better? A plan. We've done a lot of talk from our office about continuous improvement plans, right? And from 2020 to now, those plans are totally different, right? And I have to take my hat off to Vaughn and our school improvement managers, because I know sometimes they'll push things back to you. They really do want you to think, oh, it's time, or I have 5 minutes, which one? Okay, I need to read the cue right. They really are wanting you to think about what are the moves that need to happen to help improve your school. And then, of course, we are always here. We're on your side. I have never seen a more committed group of people than the people that work in the Office of Leadership Effectiveness, formerly known as School Transformation, because we love this work. We love to see schools succeed. We love to celebrate with you all when you are moving your whole school or subgroup. And so please do not hesitate to call on us. And I think I have like 3 or 4 minutes. So yes, ma'am.
I think the one thing, if I listen to, and it's even hard, and I've been doing this for at least 5 years, which is not a long time, but for some of our new ones and things like that, I think the biggest part for us is this is all lagging data.
It is.
You don't get your data till way past the time you need it. I think one of the things that I have come to realize that we are realizing in our district in terms of preempting some things is that we first have to understand the accountability manuals. If I were to give you 2 pieces of advice as a new manager, understand where those come from, and then allow your principals to understand that this translates to a school in terms of if it's EOC and it's student achievement, it counts this much because you have this many subgroups. Who are you scheduling in the summer for first semester? Who are you scheduling for so practically speaking, understanding the accountability manual and being able to put that in school leadership terms is probably your best bet to understanding this. And then when you get all your data, that's fine. You plug all of that in, but understanding where you're going to put those kids and how you're going to serve them needs to happen starting now.
Yep. And I think that's important that you bring that up, because the data is last year's data. It's old. Yeah. It's done. So, but the question I have is, what predictive data are you using on a day-to-day basis, on a quarterly basis, that correlates very closely to the outcomes that your students have received?
What I'd like to see in terms of program people is there's from your office is helping us understand those nuances. You'll get a number, you'll get a designation, but in terms of how we make sure in the continuous improvement process that we are identifying and we are evaluating and we are doing our own systems, here are some guiding ways to make sure that you're doing that. Because when you talk to programs people, I do not like math.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do it so that I stay out of orange.
Yes.
But I want to know programmatically and instructionally what I can do to support my building principals who are going to have to function with this.
Absolutely. And we're working on some things, and I think you, like anybody else knows, we are a work in progress. The Office of Leadership Effectiveness is working on their own continuous improvement plan.
So y'all are doing a great job, because this is so much more helpful than just kind of thinking about it with the visuals.
Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll be around if you have questions. I don't want to be in the way of lunch.